All right, the hardest hitting people in the UFC, the biggest punchers, the biggest knockout artists. Today we're going to rank these fighters based off of exactly just that. We have a couple of tiers here: death touch, crazy power, good power, TKOs, and pillow hands. Let's not waste any time. Aljamain Sterling, obviously the death touch. I'm joking, of course, he's pillow hands. I don't know, man. I mean, Aljo, you just can't help him out. Like, he's always going to be, the grappler with some striking, right? He's not the worst striker in the world, and he's certainly not the worst striker in his division. I don't think so. But he has like three knockouts in his entire MMA career, and he has two knockouts in the UFC. So I just can't put him any higher than that. And his last TKO win was against TJ Dillashaw, who was completely out of his prime, washed, inactive. And I think that was like a ground and pound TKO win too. So I'm just gonna put him at pillow hands. Now on the opposite side, we have Tom Aspinall, obviously death touch. Not just the fact that he's a heavyweight, which obviously means he's going to hit hard, but also the fact that the way he knocked out Curtis Blades, barely even hit him. I know Curtis Blades didn't go out cold, he didn't go unconscious, but it was like a jab that dropped him, and then he obviously finished him with a couple of ground and pound shots. And obviously the 1-2 down the pipe against Marcin Tybura, the 1-2 against Sergey Pavlovich. He just finishes every single person, whether it's by knockout or submission. But I think he predominantly finishes them by TKO or knockout. So he just has the death touch, right? You just can't escape it. Bilal, we have him at pillow hands. Obviously, I believe he only has like one stoppage win in the UFC, and that's against Sean Brady, if I'm not mistaken. And that wasn't, a testament towards how powerful he was. It was just the fact that Sean Brady could not defend himself from those shots, from the flurry of shots that he was backed up, up on the fence, and Bilal was just teeing off on him. Bogdan Guskov, I think, has good power. He did drop Jan Blachowicz in his last fight, and he also has some good knockouts in his career. I don't think he's, TKO level, and I don't think he has crazy enough power. I think he has good power, right? He's in the, in the heavier weight classes, light heavyweight, so I'll just put him at good power. Same thing with Buckley. I don't think he has crazy power. He has the big meaty hooks for sure. Shout out to Lucas Tracy. He does have those big meaty hooks, the way he was fighting Colby Covington, and also the way he knocked out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He is one of the hardest hitting people at 170 in my opinion, but he does not have the crazy power that would just shut your lights off with just one simple punch or something like that. Like he has some good power. I don't think he has you know more power than that. Chandler, I'm gonna put him at good power, and I'm gonna explain why. Some people would put him at crazy power, but it's the fact that he only has one knockout win in the UFC. I'm not gonna include the Tony Ferguson knockout because that was a front kick KO, and this tier list about the punchers, the powerful punchers, the biggest power punchers, and not the biggest power kickers, right, or elbows or anything like that. So he only has knocked out Dan Hooker. I know he almost finished Oliveira, but he didn't. He did have Dustin Poirier hurt in the first round. He did hurt Justin Gaethje, and he did clip Paddy Pimblett, but Paddy Pimblett just took it and just kept pushing forward, and eventually stopped Chandler. So I'm not gonna say he has crazy power unless, he gets a couple of more KOs, right? But for now, I think he has good enough power. Again, he has the overhands and whatnot, the big right hands, but it's just the fact that he has, one knockout win with his punches, and that's against Dan Hooker. Colby Covington, pillow hands, not even a debate. He's not known for knocking people out or even being a big puncher. Dricus Du Plessis, I'm gonna put him at TKOs. He has a couple of good TKOs over, Robert Whitaker. He also did, the the sequence that ended in, the submission of Izzy. He basically dropped him with a couple of good punches that obviously then he dropped him with, and he submitted him after that. So he has some good power, but he's just not crazy good when it comes to his power. He doesn't have ridiculous power in his hands. So I'm gonna say TKOs. And also because he's in the heavier weight classes, he's a middleweight, so he's bound to have some level of power. Josh Emmett, I'm gonna put him at crazy power, but I'm also tempted to put him in good power just because of the fact that he has not really knocked out anyone that's that credible, right? Like his only knockouts in the UFC, I believe, is against Bryce Mitchell and Michael Johnson and somebody else named like Mursad or something like that. And those guys are like, at the time of him knocking out Bryce Mitchell, I believe Bryce Mitchell maybe was ranked, maybe at the bottom of the top 15, but like Bryce Mitchell stepped in on short notice. It wasn't like a full camp Bryce Mitchell. And Michael Johnson, I don't think he was ranked either, so it's like, I don't know. But I'm gonna put him a crazy power because whenever he does land that punch, he delivers a devastating knockout. The way he knocked out Bryce Mitchell and essentially gave him CTE after that. The way he also slept Michael Johnson, just stiffed him as a board, or stiffed him like a board, you know. I think he has crazy power. I don't think he has the death touch simply because of his, lack of resume in terms of knocking people out. He has only knocked out, guys that are not that great. Then we have Davis and Figueiredo. I think I'm gonna put him at good power, and I'm gonna explain why. First things first, I do think he is the hardest hitting guy at flyweight, I think ever in the history of the flyweight division. But it's the fact that he doesn't have like the crazy knockouts that someone like Tom Aspinall or even, Josh Emmett has, right? Like he has knocked out Joseph Benavidez, and that was a testament towards how powerful Davison is. And he also, I believe, dropped Marlon Vera, which is impressive because I don't even know who has dropped Marlon Vera at 135. But he did go the distance with someone like Pantoja, and that could be just a testament towards how durable Pantoja's chin is. But also because, Davis, in my opinion, doesn't have the crazy knockouts that someone like Josh Emmett or Tom Aspinall does have or do have. So I'm going to just keep him in here. I think maybe at the top of this list. I'm not going to do this in order. I'm just going to do it like this. Justin Gaethje, good power. I don't think he has, the one-punch KO power. Like you saw it in the Paddy Pimblett fight. You saw it in multiple fights. Again, you have to exclude the knockouts that came by way of head kick, for example, in the Poirier rematch, because that's a kick, that's not a punch. So, yeah, I think he does have good power. I don't think he's a crazy knockout artist. Obviously, against Ilya Topuria, Ilya does have to be careful as much as people are underestimating Justin. I think Ilya will knock him out, but if he does get a little bit too reckless or overzealous and overconfident, Gaethje could land something, especially because we saw that he was like, I think he had a staff going into the Paddy Pimblett fight, so if he comes in 100% against Ilya, it may be a different story. But I think he has good power. Cyril Gane, TKOs. I'm not going to make this a lame, boring list where, like, the heavier guys go to the top of the list and the smaller guys go to the bottom, because that would just be stupid. Even though in technicality, I think Cyril Gane does hit harder than all of these guys because of his size, obviously, but I'm going to judge it based off of their careers and what they have done in terms of stopping people and, the power that they have showcased throughout their fights. Jack Hermanson, I'm going to put him at TKOs. He has some TKOs in the past, but as of recently, he's been getting some decision wins. But I don't think that, well, actually, no, I think I'm going to put him at pillow-fisted. I think he's, it's been a while, like so many years since he's gotten a stoppage win, so I'm going to say he's pillow-fisted for now. And then Holloway, I'm going to say he has good power. I don't think he has something extraordinary. He definitely hits harder at 155, but the way he knocked out Justin wasn't because, he's just, his power is out of this world. It's because he broke him down from round to round, right? And then at the last round, they decided to trade inside the pocket, and then obviously Justin left his chin up in the air, and then Holloway capitalized on that. But I don't think, based off of watching his fights against people like Dustin Poirier in the trilogy, I don't think he has crazy power, so I'm just going to say he has good power. Topuria has the death touch, no debate. Izzy, I'm going to say he has good power, although he doesn't go for finishes often. He has, knocked out Pereira in the way that he did. He has the stoppage win over Whitaker, also Paulo Costa. I feel like those three fights does put him in the good power tier. Like, I cannot just say that he has TKO level power or he's pillow-fisted, but then, the Pereira knockout exists out there, so I just can't say that. Jan Blachowicz also has good power, the legendary Polish power. But he doesn't have crazy power, right? Like, he knocked out Luke Rockhold, that was great, but he's not known for his knockout, I guess, skills as much as he is known for his striking skills. So I'm going to say he has good power for now. Doesn't have many highlight reel knockouts like someone like Josh Emmett or Topuria or Aspinall do have. Jack Della Maddalena, I'm going to say he has good power as well. I'm tempted to put him at TKOs. I feel like maybe his power is slightly overrated, but the way he knocked out Randy Brown, also finished Gilbert Burns, that was before he got stopped by Michael Morales and Mike Malott, so I think he only had like the stoppage loss to Kamaru Usman. So I'll say Jack Della Maddalena has good power. Prohaska, I think he has crazy power, the way he knocked out Volkan Ozdemir and Khalil Roundtree, but I need to see more highlight reels from him to then label him as someone with the death touch. Kai Kara-France, he has good knockouts over people like Steve Erceg. Moreno couldn't do it. Pantoja couldn't do it. He also has the knockout win over Cody Garbrandt. but I can't put him any higher than this because he is a flyweight. I cannot put a flyweight up here, you know? That's just what I think, at least. Derek Lewis, death touch, not even a debate. Diego Lopez, obviously, he knocked out, what's his name? Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Youssef. I'm not going to count the Gene Silva knockout because that was a spinning elbow and not a punch. And obviously, he dropped Volk, and he basically knocked out Brian Ortega, then brought him back to life. So that was very, very interesting. I'm going to put him a crazy power. Neil Magny, pillow hands. Marab, pillow hands. And this is what we are going to do for Movsar. Okay? Yeah. At least these people have knockouts, or at least stoppages in the UFC. Whether it's brutal knockouts, ground and pound, at least they have some kind of stoppages. Movsar doesn't have a single stoppage. And I don't think he'll ever get them because your best chance at stopping people is like when you're just starting in the UFC, when you're fighting cans, when you're fighting these low-level names. But he's basically at the top, so who are you going to stop? I don't think he's ever going to knock somebody out, so I'm going to keep him at this list. MVP, I think, has TKO level power. He hasn't knocked anybody out in a while. Like, in the UFC, he has 0 finishes, but in Bellator, he has multiple knockouts. So for now, I'm going to put him in here. I don't think he has good power. I think if he would be in the good power, that means he has some stoppages in the UFC, but he doesn't. Jeff Neal, I think, same thing, TKO level power. I don't think he's, crazy, crazy powerful. Maybe he's also in good power, but you know what? Let's just put him in good power. And then Sean O'Malley, obviously, the way he knocked out Aljamain Sterling, some other people as well. And I think he's the hardest hitting person at 135. Not that 135 is a division known for, having power punchers, but just, he's the best at that division when it comes to, being a power puncher. Oliveira, same thing, good power, knocked out Chandler. Who else did he? He rocked Armin Saryukian, dropped Justin Gaethje, that then led to the submission sequence. He has good enough power. Mikael Pereira, I'll put him at TKOs. Pereira, death touch. Some people might say crazy power because he doesn't put people unconscious for us to label him as someone with a death touch. But my thing is that if you land on somebody and they instantly go down and lose, that's the death touch. I don't care if they don't go unconscious. He still has the death touch, Like the way he even punches, it's not even like something that they would teach you in the gyms. I don't think so, because he doesn't really utilize the hip rotation with his punches, like arm punches almost. But because of his stature, it just somehow works, But I think he still has the death touch, right? He doesn't need to land so cleanly to knock you out, but he just does. He does just, knock you out every time. Dustin Poirier in his prime had good power. Prates, I think crazy power. I still need to see more from him in terms of highlight reel knockouts. If he knocks out Jack Della Maddalena, I think he goes to the death touch. Joe Pyfer, crazy knockout power, of course. Khalil Roundtree, I think he has this style where it's like he just puts so much aggression and tenacity into his punches, but he doesn't get like those massive highlight reel knockouts. I know he had that like soccer kick KO against, I forgot his name, but he couldn't stop Jamal Hill. If he had stopped Jamal Hill, I think he would have been up there with Prohaska because Prohaska and Pereira both knocked him out. They both knocked out Jamal Hill. But Roundtree couldn't do it. He landed so many big haymakers, standing hammer fists, and just couldn't knock him out. He dropped him a couple of times, but I think that could just put him at good power. Sergey Pavlovich, I'm going to say in his prime, he obviously had crazy power. Right now, he's been going the distance with everybody, but maybe that's the reason why the UFC is matching him up with Taliesin Teixeira. It's because they want him to get a knockout for the first time since, before he got knocked out by Tom Aspinall, which is probably the reason why he's not knocking people out, is because he's gun shy. Gene Silva, I'm going to say he has good power. Some people might say he has crazy power, but I'll just put him in here just because, he hasn't knocked anybody out that's, good, if that makes sense. Okay, he knocked out Melsik Bagdasaryan, Drew Dober. Drew Dober is good, but he's never been in the rankings, or, when he fought him, he was not in the rankings. But then when he stepped up in competition and fought someone like Diego Lopez and Arnold Allen, he didn't look like he was this devastating puncher. He still has good power, though. Song Yadong, good power. The knockout went over Marlon Moraes, obviously. People still have to be wary when they're fighting him. They cannot just be too reckless. He still can knock you out at any time in the fight. Then we have Strickland and Payne Talbot. I think they could both go at good power, right? When you look at their careers, I feel like they've had better stoppages than these people in here, right? Maybe Mikael Pereira could also go up here, but I don't know. Peyton Talbot could also go down here because his only knockout wins or the good highlight reel knockouts that he has were against people like Cameron Simon and Giannis Gamori, who are both like, with all due respect, they're just not, top 15 worthy. But then when he stepped up in competition and fought someone like Felipe Lima, couldn't stop him. Henry Cejudo, worst version of Henry Cejudo we've ever seen. Again, we were not trying to degrade Peyton's win over Henry, but that's like the oldest version of Henry Cejudo, the most washed version, obviously retired after that fight. I'm going to say he has TKO level power for now. Or actually, I'm not sure. Like, when he does land clean, it's like he's, pretty powerful. And maybe it's just that, Cejudo's chin was just too durable. I'm going to say he has good power, and I think Strickland also has good power as well. Like, he dropped Izzy, he knocked out Fluffy Hernandez, Abus Magomedov, a couple of other people as well, Brendan Allen, stuff like that. So he does get finishes every now and then, so I'll just put him at good power for now. So yeah, that's my personal list. I think I'm going to do more of these tier list videos, but with different ideas and concepts, because I think they're just fun. So I guess that's pretty much it. See ya.